What music do you like to listen to?
A little bit of everything, whether it be country or rock. It depends on the mood and depends on where I'm going.
Who's your favorite sprint car driver of all time?
Oh, look, without doubt, my dad. You know, he's my Superman, and you know, just one hell of a good racer.
Are you right or left-handed?
Right-handed.
You use an iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Do you use emojis?
I've got enough ugly faces on that I can pull myself. I don't need them.
What was the first street car you drove when you were a kid?
HJ Holden.
Do you prefer talking or texting?
Talking.
Are you always early or always late?
Always early.
Work hard or play hard?
Both.
Prefer beaches or mountains?
Definitely beaches. I'm allergic to white stuff they call snow.
Who's your favorite sports team?
South Sydney Rabbitohs from Australia.
What's the last movie you watched?
Cool Runnings.
You prefer Facebook or Twitter?
Facebook.
If you started a new race team and you were able to choose a teammate, who is it and why?
I'd hire Tony Stewart and have AJ Foyt as his mechanic.
That's
Enough said, you don't need to explain why.
No. If you're in charge of sprint car racing for a year, what things would you change about the sport?
Look, definitely, I don't think we need to make rule changes on the technology side of it and rule specifics. I think we've got to get back to the old characteristics of promoting the sport, teaching people about promoting their sponsors and marketing, and you know, having some characters back in the sport.
Describe one of the best fan encounters you've had over the years.
It's probably definitely not the time the guy walked up and called me Terry McCall, but no, look, I think one of the biggest thing is every night there's a new encounter if you're a young fan, and if you can make one of those young kids fall in love with sprint car racing, whether that means you give him your trophy from the night for him to take home and remember it the same way I remember my trophy from Sleepy Trip from 1977. Yeah, that to me is the coolest encounter.
What's your most embarrassing moment in racing?
Probably, I've had too many to list, but I'd probably go back to crashing first lap of hot laps, I would say, when my dad told me not to go high and I decided to go high in any case.
If it's a Saturday night and it rains out, what do you do?
Well, usually I'm in Knoxville when it's raining in the pits, and then I got a 5-hour drive home. But if it's rained out before we leave, it's usually doing something with my wife and kids, whether it be out on the lake on a pontoon or sitting around a bonfire. You know, just enjoying time with my family. I live and race 24/7, and you need those odd moments away from the sport to appreciate the good and bad times.
What's your best memory of the Knoxville Nationals?
Look, probably be one of my biggest disappointments, to be honest. It was being here with the Steel Dreams car, and we were running fourth at Nationals and blew a tyre with, I think, 10 laps to go. So it was a bittersweet moment. It was a moment to know that we were on the pace of putting ourselves on the podium, even though we didn't get there.
Where are you in 5 years?
Still running sprint cars, enjoying life, and trying to talk my kids out of going sprint car racing and hoping they take up golf.
What's your proudest moment in racing? Or did you just answer it?
Look, you know, there's so many proud moments. You know, I look at the moments of seeing my kids in the pits playing with race cars. You know, being a part of my dad's Australian title win. You know, some of our accomplishments, but it's usually not so much a race that I've won, but something that I've been a part of as a crew member or a spectator.
How does a guy from Australia end up racing in the United States?
I went to the bar looking for a good time, and I ended up at Knoxville, Iowa.
That's the short answer. What's some of the biggest differences racing in Australia when you first started out racing to what it is now in Australia?
Look, I think right now we've lost a lot of characters within the sport. I think we're sometimes too politically correct with what we say and being sponsor savvy, but I think that's one thing. I mean, right now, when I started racing, you built the components that made you fast, and there was always an equipment advantage. That's what made Carl Kinser so good. It's what made Alan Felsh in Australia or John Barrett in Australia so good. you had to make the stuff. Now, if you've got a wealthy bank account behind you, you can buy everything that Donny Schatz has got. The only bad part about that is you realise you're not as talented as him.
What's your best memory of Gary Rush?
Probably the first time he put his arm around my shoulders when I was 18 years old, and he said, "Kid, you might make it in this sport, good job."
What's it like marrying into another racing family that has some history around Knoxville Raceway?
Worst part is I can't lie to my wife about what went wrong at the racetrack and why we didn't run good. I can make excuses and she'll call my bluff on it, but look, I think that's what makes the Nationals a lot more prestigious for me than some of the other guys, is because of the emotional factor of knowing that my father-in-law won here. So you know, it's the one thing my brother-in-law Jerry Richert jokes with me about is he's got a lot more feature race wins at Knoxville than what I have. So yeah, it's a great honour, it's a privilege, and when you hear guys like Terry McCall talk about how good Jerry Richert Senior was, you know that the stories are true.
You're gonna let your son race?
Look, I'll let him race for fun. There's no way I'm going to let my kids chase this for a living. I just want them to have a great life. But I always said no, they're not going to race. But I see my little guy in particular working on these race cars and now wanting to play go-karts and wanting to race. And look, I'll let them do it as long as they promise me one thing: they're going to have fun doing it. And you know, we just go along for the ride.